Do you want to welcome everyone, or should I?
I don't remember how.
Hello, dearest listeners, and welcome back to Duality Bites.
Duality Bites.
We're going to talk more about Daggerheart, the system, and today we are focusing on environments, one of my absolute favorite mechanics in Daggerheart. How are you, Carmela?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Glad to be here with you. Both of our cats seem to have run off. Typical. They were both bothering us aggressively.
She got what she came for.
Yeah, but yes, we're recording this shortly after the release of episode 9, A Ring of Fire, which featured our most complex set-piece combat
Yes.
so far. And it's funny because I just spent way too long today cutting a short of your bolt beacon to put on TikTok.
I used a spell.
Yes.
For the first time ever.
The part where I really thought I was screwing you over with one of the environment features, and then you crit, which was extremely rude of you, if I'm being honest.
How dare I do that? You were kicking the shit out of us up until then.
Yes.
You really were. I was listening back while I was editing. I'm like, man, she really hammered us in like the first couple rounds of that fight. And I was like, I have to use spells. Like, there's no choice. She's going to kill me.
And as always, listeners, we will do our best not to spoil too much for those who have not yet listened to episode 9. You will hear how this combat ended. There will probably be some mild plot spoilers, or at least character development spoilers, but there's no reason we'd get into the big stuff, I don't think.
No, there probably won't be any major plot stuff. It's like, hey, we had a fight and this is what happened. So.
Yeah, and the big spoiler, I think, is Lemma used magic for the first time. I made him use magic.
You did. Hey, in a very fantastical way that maybe didn't quite have the effectiveness planning because of how you did this environment.
Yeah, which I will come to that.
Yes.
But I just wanted to getting the Daggerheart book out because for those of you who are following along at home, the combat that we did, I centered on the Burning Heart of the Woods environment from the Daggerheart book, which, from the 1.5 playtest rules. Asteria popping in again here from the future, just to clarify that the Burning Heart of the Woods stat block and descriptions do not differ in the published materials compared to the playtest materials we were using, in case you were wondering. And as I mentioned in the episode, I did scale it down a tier using the Fresh Cut Grass app, which was all the shout outs to them. Daggerheart makes it easy to scale things up and down, like with the modularity of adversaries and such things. And Fresh Cut Grass is what helped me realize and appreciate that. So because our young poets were tier 2, I think level 3. I think we become level 4 3. After that.
No, we become level 3 at the end of this fight.
Oh, wow.
I started editing the next episode, and we do our level up at the beginning of that.
Right.
So we're about to be level 3.
So, so it was a bunch to throw at you.
Yes. You scared me because I went down to half health, and I'm like, my health has never been this low. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Now, to those of you who are not following along at home and flipping through the book and who don't know already that it's page 248, the environment I'm talking about, let me explain what environments are in Daggerheart so you know what on Harrow's green soil we are talking about. So a very reductive way to put it, but let's start there, is that an environment is a pre-packaged encounter. Like, start by imagining that. But it's actually the concept of a prepackaged encounter. It's a concept and suggestions of an encounter. And there are combat encounters, they have social encounters, they have traversal encounters, to get across a river or through a pass.
Right.
And they're called environments because it's not just here are the adversaries and their stat blocks. It's here's the place that your PCs find themselves. And here's the tier that this is aimed at. Here's the place they are, and here are the challenges that come with that place, and here are the adversaries they might encounter in that place. And this environment, this place and situation itself has challenges, features that you can throw at your... So the Burning Heart of the Woods, which is actually an exploration environment, technically, is a difficulty, as a tier 3, as it's written, is a difficulty 16, and it lists potential adversaries. Now, I didn't throw you all everything I could have from this, and I did swap out some adversaries that were more thematically appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want the listeners to appreciate that I started out assuming I was going to have to create my own encounter for this. I knew what I wanted. I knew that this location, the Sallow Ring, the concept of a man named Porphyry the Happy who was wandering around
cemetery inside of a grove.
Yeah, ripping up these vines. That existed long before he was connected to Kiva, long before I knew how he was connected to anything. And when I knew he was Kiva's father and that he was transformed in this way and that you were all going to have to go get him and that you would be surrounded by fire and that this would be connected to the contagious corpse of the primordial goddess of chaos. I was like, oh, well, I've given myself a lot to represent here. I have some research to do. And then I flew through the playtest and found that this had been basically written for me already, and I did not have that much to do. The Burning Heart of the Woods, Tier 3 exploration. Thick indigo ash fills the air around a towering moss-covered tree that burns eternally with flames a sickly shade of blue. And the features include chaos magic locusts. I won't read every word. And, I put in a chaos skull. That's an adversary that exists. Pre-written, the brambles that, if they entangle you, they bring up a disturbing memory. That is part of this environment. It was all there for me to play with. There's clearly a cult ritual storyline they're accommodating.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be part of that, but it fits very well with that. But also...
It also fits with the ghostly memory of a battle of long ago.
Yeah. And this wasn't not a cult ritual.
Yeah, it's not a cult ritual.
It was the site of a cult ritual, as you say, long ago. So that's, hopefully you're caught up, dearest listeners. And it was fun to listen back to because I did feel like I sounded very powerful and like I knew what I was doing.
No, it was a fun environment. Because you literally told me that you wanted to trap us to make sure like we couldn't weasel our way out of this, which we want to do.
Yeah.
So you're like, all right, I'm just going to set the entire perimeter on fire, which Kiva did in dramatic fashion at the end of the previous episode to this one. And so, okay, cool, we're stuck here. And now it's just trying to like feel out the environment. And then David did something really cool early on where we have all these vines that are, on fire but got the vibe that like they didn't really want to be part of this. So David, being a druid, went ahead and talked to them, which you didn't expect anybody to do. And you had to kind of pull all that stuff up like really fast. So you can tell me what that process was like.
Yes, and we were talking in another session, in another episode of Duality Bites, that I feel myself or hear myself pausing and doing a 3-paragraph answer sometimes. And I think that's part of the collaborative world building that we're doing. And some people are not going to enjoy that, and that's fine. I'm a little new to this, and I'll probably get faster. But it's also part of me intentionally not having everything planned out beforehand, because I stacked my deck here with you 4 brilliant weirdos who are supposed to come up with things that are cool and make me think of things. And, I don't know if any of the answers I gave were that, like the lore I dropped was that fascinating, but I actually really liked, personally, like as an audience member this week, months and months after we recorded it, I really liked the way I characterized those vines. Talking to Orlean, there was a lot in the conversation. Like I remembered the major plot points well, but there were a lot of little things. It's like, oh, they're unfurling a message. I don't have any idea what that's going to say.
Yeah, we recorded that back in January 2025. Right now it is middle of October. So that was, 10 months ago. There was plenty of stuff in there that I had forgotten. And I listened to the show more than anybody. And I was like, I forgot that this was a thing that we did. And it's usually like some cool thing that David did. I'm like, how did I forget that? And there it is. So the only thing I remembered before I started editing this episode was Liz beat the crap out of us. That's the part I remembered, because you did. It's mostly because up until this point, we've had a couple combats and we've kind of, again, either weaseled our way out or we were able to do enough damage quick enough for people to back down. And that didn't happen. Like, we can't escape because there's fire everywhere. And the adversaries that you picked, half of them were resistant to magic. And then the other half was resistant to physical damage. And Ginny, who I play, at least up to this point, was just like, she's just going to ram her head up against it until it falls down. And that wasn't going to work. So at least not. So you had to think about it. You're like, okay. And that's, Lemma uses spells for the first time. Ginny uses spells for the first time.
Yeah. Well, and that moment with Ginny afterwards stood out to me so well. I mean, the editing was great, but of you and Evelyn coaxing it out of you to get the healing. And it's such a wonderful character moment, too, of showing that Evelyn has noticed that Ginny does. Ginny can do this
The
thing.
way that I play Ginny, I just say I all the time, so I totally understand. I'm the only person on the show that does that.
Which we've all talked about off camera is something we all like, but we think has to happen organically.
Yeah.
But I love that Evelyn, Katie found the moment to say, hey, I know you can do this wonderful thing. I've noticed it. You've done it with me. Do you think maybe you want to do it now?
Yeah.
And I don't think we'd really discussed it out of character at that point. So much focus had been on Lemma not using his magic, even within that episode.
Yeah.
But I do want to...
We were all just like so excited because oh my God, he's going to do it.
But in terms of the environments and the combat, I do want to make clear to our darling listeners, we talk about this in one of the Chicago episodes, but I don't expect everyone to be completionist with Duality bites. So I just want to make clear, it is fine and wonderful to avoid combat. We're being tongue-in-cheek when we say weaseling. I love a weasel. As a player, I am a proud weasel. It is good RP to try to not fight and die.
No, for sure. But this is an instant where we really did have to fight.
And I did that intentionally because also as a player, I know that it is fun to fight. Like it is good role playing for your character to try not to die, but it is fun gaming to be in a life or death situation.
Right.
And that is, to me,
balance.
Not to me, this is just facts. That is part of the foundation of Daggerheart, of the mechanics of the system.
It's the duality, if you will.
Yeah, that is the duality, is that a story requires hope and fear, and it requires a possibility of failure.
Right.
And we don't want that in real life. We don't want to be in danger. And as I've said many times, the most optimized character is the one who stays home.
The only way to win a fight is to not play at all.
Yeah. It's only adventure when you're very brave, aka stupid. For most of us, it's just bad things happening.
Right.
It's a very rare sliver of bad things happening that becomes adventure. So I felt I owed it to you guys and to our exploration of the system to put you in a place where it made sense for you to fight the whole fight.
Right.
Because that thus far didn't make sense for you to have a fight till the end fight, or to make the audience listen to that. Because in the first fight with the dire wolves, they're wolves, we get it, and you each had one incredible round. I wrapped that up early for a lot of reasons. So these environments, one of the many ways that they excite me so much is that they give you so many ways to enrich a combat. And I don't know if we've said this to our listeners, but this is my second time running a campaign ever. I ran at the first year of lockdown, I ran for 6 months a 5e Eberron campaign with J-Ben and my spouse as the players. And it made me very anxious. And I thought I just didn't like DMing. And a lot of what that was, I mean, first of all, to be anxious during the first year of lockdown, that's not diagnostic. That's not
was the state
5e's
of the
fault.
world.
Yeah, that's not 5e's fault.
Yeah, I remember you messaging me, asking me
Right,
for DM opinions.
And we didn't even know each other that well yet.
No.
Like, I was like, hey, here's the thing that I want.
What do you think about, like, should I do, like,
what does the initiative order have to be if these people come in this exact order?
And then we would discuss it. We're like, all right, yeah, this is what we think you should do. And then
Yeah, I was like, I've heard you mention on the podcast that you run D&D. Can I ask you a question about... Because about how I'm the worst ever, and I don't know what
You're not the worst ever.
Well, no, of course I wasn't. But I made a lot of what I thought were mistakes. Oh, they were mistakes, probably. But, I didn't understand. Basically, I knew 5e from Dimension 20. David, my spouse, had run a 4e campaign for a couple years that J-Ben and I were in. But none of us knew 5e. This was us getting to know 5e because we'd all started watching Dimension 20 during the pandemic, and we were like, let's give it a shot. But the swinginess of the combat in 5e was a very big surprise to me, which now that's like the thing everyone knows if you've played 5e for a little bit. I ran the, what's it called, Forbidden Relics, the intro adventure that comes in the Eberron 5e book. Oh God, it's been so long. Something of the Last War. By the way, I love you, Keith Baker, and I love Eberron so much. Anyway, so I ran that module, and it was only 2 players. Of course, I was like half homebrewing my own system.
Is it Rising from the Last War? Is that the name of it?
Yes, Rising from the Last War. Thank you. And Forgotten Relics, I think, is the module. I'll get to my point very soon. What we'll cut that to is we had a sidekick mechanic, so it wasn't just the 2 PCs.
Right.
And we got to the boss fight at the end of the module. And, David was playing a rogue, and he crit with sneak attack. And so this big solo boss was beat in 1 round, basically. And so there's baby DM Asteria not going, oh, I just learned a lesson about action economy in 5th edition. Me going, oh, I need to kick things up several notches. And so then I built my own combat and myrtleized them.
No.
And it was horrible. So we all know that Daggerheart overall is less swingy than D&D and many other systems. But also, as a GM who wants to be able to follow the fiction and improv, and who wants to be able to spend less time plotting and planning and locking a session into a specific trajectory, the ability to flip through and find a cluster on short notice is really indispensable. And as I mentioned before, the adversaries are, when you look at them closely, kind of modular tier by tier. They've put everything into categories like in 4E, where you can balance an encounter by type, not just by vague math.
Okay. You said that you substituted some of the adversaries. So what was your process in figuring out which ones, because you used the Burning Heart of the Wood. So what was the process of figuring out of the available adversaries that were listed, which ones did you want, which ones did you swap, which ones did you reflavor, that kind of stuff?
This, of course, is going to come back to Fresh Cut Grass. I do want everyone to know that I have no affiliation whatsoever with Fresh Cut Grass. I don't know them. They don't know me. I am not on the take, though you could reasonably think I am with how much I shout them out. But, one of the things that has made 5e so easy for so many people to get into in the past few years was that for a while, the online support tools, the third-party tools, made it really user-friendly, and D&D didn't have any of that for a long time. And Daggerheart fans got right on it. And so from
they
the
had something right out the
playtest,
gate.
yeah. And it's weird that some people online have been expecting Darrington to have all of that all at once at first release, which is very strange because, you know, I don't think there's any gaming system that has done that.
Well,
But fresh, yeah,
yeah, I have fandom opinions about that, but
yeah, we don't need to.
but like, it is unrealistic to expect any company, no matter how big or small they are, to have something like that from the jump. So that's just all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah. But fresh cut grass, you can search by tier, by biome, and by role, as in leader, solo, minion, bruiser, environment, by category, as in undead or monstrosity. And can I find the encounter deck I made? I think I can. Yes. Cellaring. All right. Future Asteria here again. I went back to the playtest materials and my fresh cut grass setup to better answer Carmela's question about how the hell I chose the adversaries I did. And I have the nitty and the gritty for you if you're interested. If not, you might want to skip ahead a little bit. This is a great chance to show how Daggerheart lays out adversaries in a way that makes it easier and faster to put together a combat. So once again, I was using the 1.5 playtest materials on this. The stat blocks and all of that were functionally the same as they are now in the published materials. The difference that's relevant here at all is the guidance on how to build a combat, how to choose adversaries. The playtest materials didn't have the battle points system for balancing a combat. It had guidance on how many to use that wound up being basically similar, but it didn't have the guidance that the book now has of 3 times the number of PCs plus 2, add and subtract points for this. It wasn't quite that spelled out. The adversary categories were the same, and their relative weight was the same. So for the Burning Heart of the Wood encounter, which again I scaled down a tier, and my party was still level 2, the bottom of tier 2. I got rid of the random beasts it said you could use if you wanted, and I swapped out the Verdant Defenders, the Dryad, the Stag Knight, and the Oak Treant. Now, the Dryad is a leader, a tier 3 leader, and I subbed in a tier 2 leader, the Mortal Hunter, which is what Porphyry was, though I wound up not getting to use a lot of his cool stuff. I do believe that I triggered his countdown. It maybe advanced once, and there was another countdown that was far more consequential. The Stag Knight, tier 3 standard, got turned into the Chaos Skull, a tier 2 ranged adversary. They are the same weight, ranged and standard. And Chaos Skull, obviously, I could not resist. It had it in the name, Chaos. And then the Oak Treant was a bruiser, and that became a horde, the electric eels that were the moss. And that, I think, is the biggest shift in magnitude. A horde is not as strong as a bruiser, but that's kind of funny because the eels did mess them up and scare them on that first big shock attack. The grasping vines were from the environment. They weren't an adversary stat block. They weren't even though I called them brambles, they were not the tangled bramble. They were a feature of the Burning Heart of the Wood environment. Perhaps an obvious question is why I didn't use any of the ghost or skeleton or zombie adversaries in tiers 1 and 2, since we were having this fight in a graveyard. By the time I got to the Burning Heart of the Wood, I did want to keep things a little more in the nature horror rather than the necromancy horror realm, and particularly with this concept of the fungrals and the Warden of Renewal cycle. Pulling skeletons out of the ground would certainly have been spooky, but might have taken us into slightly the wrong story. It wasn't about undeath and going against the character of death whom we had met. It was about an area of corrupted nature. Yeah, if I'd been doing this with the published rules, with the battle points, I would have been entitled to at least 14 battle points. And since I only gave them 2 minions, not 4, which was based on a die roll, this was really only 7.5 points worth of adversaries. However, I'm not sure how to count the environment itself in that. And I need to look through the book again. But the fact that it had these abilities, that surely should eat up some battle points. So I will have to look into whether or not there is a specific math rule about that. Final thing I'll add is I'd forgotten I did in fact switch Kiva to a stat block for this combat. She was not using a character sheet anymore. I started NPCs, specifically ones who are poets. I started them out with full character sheets as my way of learning the system and exploring other classes, the classes that PCs had not taken. But for a lot of reasons that did not play out well. But Kiva had a tier 2 cult adept stat block in this combat. She used Shroud of the Fallen, for example, to protect Orleans. Yeah. All right. Back to our podcast already in progress. The Moss was a horde.
Right.
Which proved controversial, apparently.
Just because we were just trying to figure out, like, so what happened? Again, it's because of the way that we wanted to do this, not we, Evelyn and Lemma wanted to do this particular spell, that it was gonna make a difference. So that's why that came into play.
Listening back, I was a little bit like, maybe I should have made it 2 hordes, but then I remembered how damage worked for like, no, it's clearly a horde and not minion. Sorry, what you did was great. And I gave them the option of targeting. They had other targets they could have targeted.
Yeah, they could have hit that skull. They didn't.
Yeah. I was like, a lot of people want a lot of things.
People in hell want I swear. Don't look at either one of you. God, my no used to say that all the time. Just like that, dude. Either one of you.
Oh, boy.
I did find the photo of, so during the episode, I got a crit during a pivotal moment, and I found the picture.
Oh, you found it?
That I took to prove that, I mean, not that you guys weren't going to believe me, but I do still have that picture.
You got to memorialize.
Yeah. I was like, I'm just going to take a picture of this crit because it's ridiculous. Because it was like right after you got done beating the crap out of us.
Well, and that's another thing about the fear and the hope. You were all, at the time when I was beating the crap out of you, I was looking at your sheets and looking at the rules and knowing about all the heals you had and knowing about the death moves that were possible and thinking, calm the fuck down, guys.
Yeah, no,
But listening to it this week, I was like, fuck. They're taking a lot of damage.
Yeah. That's how it felt us, because up to that point that had never happened. Were we gonna be fine? Yeah, probably. But in the moment, because knowing that you were maxed on fear, like literally you could not take all the fear that you could have from the short rest, and most of us were maxed on hope. So we, like, all of our resources were full, but we also knew that you had all of the fear that you could ever possibly have, and that you were itching to use it.
Well, there are, especially in this, now that we're in the latter half of the season, there are a bunch of times where I take on a villainous tone.
You never.
And
you
to me, while I was doing it, it's like, everyone knows, all of us know I'm just acting. And now I'm listening to it. It's like, oh, I'm a good actor. I sound like I'm very willing to kill them. And, I'm willing to kill you. I was not expecting to kill you in that fight. And, Kiva was there, and I had switched up for that fight, I had switched up my approach, mechanically, my approach to Kiva. She had a full character sheet, and I'd revisited the advice that existed on allies, which was, scant. But, it was trying to not make her a DMPC. And I think with Soren in the previous combat, that was fine because he was specialized and there were so many combatants. And he had a stat block, not a character sheet anyway, and he was powerful than you guys. But with Kiva, she had a character sheet because she was a poet and she was at least a level higher than you guys.
Right.
And like, okay, well, so I can't have her taking a turn like she's in the party. And, the guidance is the official Daggerheart guidance is if you have an ally, they're there and they can do something in combat if it makes sense for the fiction, but they shouldn't, they're not one of the heroes.
Right. They're not to borrow a D&D analogy, they're not in the initiative order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think she did enough that it wasn't weird that she did nothing, but she supported.
Yeah. I'll give you something from a player perspective.
Please.
Just because of the way that this combat went. In previous combat encounters, we would get a little hurt, but my character, Ginny, generally, she'll take damage, but doesn't get hurt a lot. So she has a tendency, because she has an ability that allows her to jump in front of other people and take the damage for them. And so usually Lemma is nearby, because up until this point, he was just running in with his sword. So usually within melee with me. So I would go and jump in front of Lemma, because Lemma's character is a lot squishier than Ginny is. So the first thing that I had done was jump in front of Lemma and take the damage and took the hit point. And I'm like, this will be fine. And then we ended up taking what felt like a lot of damage all at once. And all of a sudden I'm at half health. And so I had to rethink while I'm looking at all my stuff, like, I can't keep jumping in front of people if we're going to keep getting hit like this, which means I'm going to have to let someone else get hurt, which from a
interesting Genevieve.
Yes, from a player perspective, killed me. From just her personality would have like killed her to not want to do that. But also from like a tactics perspective, I'm like, well, if I go down, I'm really the main martial character in the party. If I go down, that's not good. So I have to like pick and choose what it is I'm going to take damage for.
Yeah.
Because I went with what I had been doing. Someone's going to take damage. I jump in front of them. That's my job. And then all of a sudden I have to be like, maybe I don't do that and let them fend for themselves at least through this round. That's something from combat that, because it was a little bit different than everything that we had done up to that point, that I had to change tactics really quickly, not do what I would typically do in that situation. So.
Well, now I want to scrap this whole episode and just have the four of you talk about this combat without me.
Okay.
Like, how did it shift things for your characters? How did it make you all go, uh-oh, I can't go on doing...
Like, I can't keep...
What
is Ginny going to stop jumping in front of Lemma or Evelyn, or doesn't really have to jump in front of Orlean all that much. He can usually... He'll turn into a bear. He'll be fine.
Well, and it shook up... I mean, David/Orlean was shook up about taking damage.
Yeah, a little bit. Like, that he got hurt. But there's chaos, and that just was perfect.
It was really nice that he got that great finishing touch, because I felt like he was feeling his frailness for a lot of that, and then he really got to understand his build.
Every single poet got to do something really cool.
Yeah, well, you're all really cool.
When you're in combat, and this happens sometimes, like, depending on how it's balanced, people go and they do all their cool stuff up front, trying to get as much, advantage as possible. And then sometimes maybe you don't get to do the cool thing because the thing's already gone. That kind of stuff always happens in combat. But I like that every single one of us got to do something that was interesting, got to show the mechanics of the game, and was good for their character. And Lemma got to abuse Mage Hand, so good for him.
Got to abuse Mage Hand, which is every wizard type stream. I think it was a well-deserved level up afterwards for all of us, because it's like, oh yeah, we explored level 2 in this combat. Like, the more you explore your powers, the more you will level up. You can't get to the next level until we find out what you learned this level.
So what did we learn?
Parallela. Okay. Very good.
Parallela. No, I think it worked out.
Yeah. It's almost like I planned things, but I didn't quite.
Hey, that's the beauty of Daggerheart.
It really, really is.
You guys should play it. It's a fun game.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to Duality Bites, a production of Hagdeal Gaming. If you like what we're doing here, come say hi on Blue Sky or TikTok at Hagdeal Gaming. Leave us a review. We'd love to know what you think. And remember, as a wise person once said, I am a proud weasel,